This right here was a new frontier. I have yet to appear back to my old crew in 3014, I was stuck out here in planet. A scientist in the 7-year span has explained in madness. Here I have encompassed the human thoughts and disparity. The only argument of the self-replications cells is my own teaching. After all, Marus was a scientist who was the de facto leader of the low and forgotten Mars state, at the facility circa 2987. Thousands of the human wit and callous emotions, I have seen it with my own eyes, the contempt of individuality circa 2567. Have we to endure more hardships on the baseless rock? Our forgotten mandate of salutation, recreated sorrow, mutated synapses that rattle the human mind, this day cannot be forgotten. Meanwhile, after heading out, I overheard mission control. The entire mission was to extract rocks, Mars stone, plutonium, metals, like steel, platinum. My job was to extract the entire veins of plutonium. 3 hours slow sleep cycle, I was going ahead, smuggling another source of plutonium, day after day, but before that some leisure activities. This crew was the unofficial crew of a team named Team Forky. A group of 4 men and 1 teenager, all trying to reaffirm rebel headquarters, and owning up to their fringe CEOs. Of course, plant life and some insect were used as food. That should have been a given. Sometimes we played virtual sports, tennis most often, any less and we would be bored of our minds. The entire setup, style of living, life on Mars is a virtual hell. The living conditions weaken, holding out sanity 9 weeks, depending on person, in 0.3 Earth's gravity here on this ship. It's a hard reckless abandonment. Our team, we come and go. We have only met each other from the mission 2.5 weeks, waiting to go back into smuggling. I know one guy in our group. Government has changed over the course of a year from a democracy to a constitutional republic, into a oligarchy, kleptocracy. This has little effect on our station on Mars. Libertarians paves the way in this impossible environment. Little else matters but getting back to Earth after a haul. Paul, Stephen, Richard, Mike and myself, I felt like I was doing the grunt work with Mike. I was stuck in a 500-meter base. Right now I reached the entrance. It was ridiculous, from getting into our suits, after our workout to condition us to avert brittle bone disease. I and Mike have 4 hours to extract plutonium from the vein. Here was 0.41 less than Earth's gravity. I adjusted my radar deck and there was about 9 miles to the next plutonium vein. What can I say? It was a small trek over there, but then the sandstorm started appearing. It was about a week when I first started to dig at the main site. We began using plutonium to smuggle it to a dark market over in the Ukraine. This gave us a cut on the check. We have to give this to the Russian-owned Krautov site, and we are good to go for our team. It's a difficult bargain to think about the uncertainty of getting caught in the process, but in the end it's worth the price of admission. However, in a sandstorm this was a different experience. I had very little time to react. I had to hide behind a rock and rubble. I waited for hours, countless of seconds of hours. Here I was, day 2 of our expedition. Mike, my teammate, had abandoned. The man nowhere to be seen. My first guess was to check out the radar. Most likely he had returned to the main deck after being lost from the sandstorm. Minor one here on Mars could spell trouble for us. I didn't know where I was in this god-forsaken planet. I was walking forward trying to catch a way to compass myself. In this suit, there was nothing, and supplies in my suit would only last for 3 more days. I walked into something that looked like a mountain. Obviously, this could be the vein. A small signal, I feel asleep. It was a long night. After I ate some rations from inside my suit, I went on, and a larger signal appeared on its place. I saw this guy, in an unknown space suit. I had to ask his for identification. When I approached him I was surprised, but not really, as he stopped and greeted me, with, "Hi, I see a base has sprung up a month ago near here." His voice was exalted, cacophonic, but in a couple of minutes, I asked what he was doing here. He said, "Same recourse. I am from 95 miles back from NR47. I had seen and inured. This location contains plutonium." I was skeptical. I knew right away. We can't see a signal on either channel. I knew, if the receding sandstorm had passed, and we sat and had a conversation on a nearby soft rock. He said that he wanted to check out a vein, but didn't specify the company he was working for. This odd firmament was sketchy. So I played dumbfounded and thought of a way to extort information. "Let's work on this vein," I said to the stranger. After a while I got to another conversation. "I know little of your story. Have you been smuggling around?" he asked. I was caught off guard. How did this alliteration of logic pass his? The shuttle wasn't abandoned. We compromised on each other and decided to make a cut and go into the small cave to extract uranium on space GH-34. Both of our suits couldn't last 3 more days. 2 days was plenty of time to create a fucking counter. So we went where we were supposed to and we began mining for plutonium on this cave. The space backpack was enough to carry bits and pieces like always, and I felt like we hit the jackpot. The grunt work, low skill ceiling jackpot, but it was all for another cause, well, a mere profit, and slightly higher percentage for me. We couldn't dig as fast. We were one person. It seemed to be going well, but all of a sudden, the wall collapsed around us. This was made worse, but the stranger, he was gone. I had seen him a while ago. After a while, this conversation was an awkward affair of myself. I had to be ascertain on this strange new foe. I was struggling. I was a smuggler with a counter. This man, I suspected to be bandit. I had a feeling. Immediately I tried to spring a trap for him, as a suspect. It would make sense. After a while it dawned on me he was in the same, well, the current indifference in today's society. We remained not speaking to each other, no one word. I figured, not knowing a conversation, he would start attacking me. A demonic smile came through, if you could see it through my helmet. I saw him running off, but I stopped and immediately saw a chill down my spine. He reassured me nothing has happened. Of course we had less than a day to make it, so I decided to get back to base in a few hours. Riding a wave of insolence, I would use a rock slide to my advantage just in case, but then all of a sudden, some of my gear outside was gone. I used the rock slide trick over the nearby wall. It was a gamble. Of course, gravity moving slower than Earth, but the cave collapsed. My dumbass self not realizing the mistake, I crawled by my way outside. But all of a sudden light, and a man in a space suit of unidentifiable markings said, "Hold, who goes the?" like some German officer. I thought living here would have given me leverage, but it all came back to haunt me. I saw a guy, possible a thief. He was the man who took my equipment. In a cold, harsh place like this, as well as we a smuggler, I could end up 20 years in prison. I thought of the fuckery of all of this. Here I was a smuggler, betrayed by a thief, both of us walking a line of decoration. The men took us in their van, lined up like cattle. It was a breath of fresh air. Out of this suit at least, I know I had to exercise again. The entire van was dark as a black sky. I felt empty-headed and drunk, like I fucked a produce sale. After a while, the message from the intro appeared, and I was at a loss. I knew my entire weeks of adventure was gone, and I was just a smuggler for hire. It seemed like go. Then it happened. I was knocked out long enough. I had no recollectio of what has happened. What was I charged with? After a while, the gravity was shifted. I was on Earth along with other inmates. Seems to me like I was in a forced labor camp. I was here again mining for rocks. What a sad irony. I had a decision to make, and after all the entire abandonment of ideals as well as no casuality, fertility ended up being my descent of madness. I was once again working with strangers, little rest, reconcile sleep, with insomnia. I knew nothing of what happened to my crew and the thief back on Mars. I will have to get out when I was 65. In the end, I guess we regretted our decision. After all, two crooks are unable to negotiate a deal, will just hurt each other. There was no going back.